Friends, it has been a month. The bill has finally come due, and I wanted to sit down with you all and just one, catch you up on what has been happening, and two, talk about how I am handling this massive, sudden emergency $13,000 expense. So it has been a very, very, very expensive few weeks over here in my life. And I thought this might be helpful to talk through some strategies that I'm using to deal with this, to handle this massive expense that I, to be perfectly honest, wasn't super well prepared for. I do have some savings. I did have pet insurance, but I was not really prepared for an expense of this magnitude. So we are just going to talk about the realities of that, and that is life. Things like this happen, they come up, and sometimes, most of the time, I think we are not 100% prepared for them. Most Canadians, most Americans do not have a ton of savings. I think more than half of people live paycheck to paycheck. I actually saw something recently, I don't know if it was CBC or CTV, but they were just running a little segment about how very few Canadians have emergency savings at all. And that's not especially surprising. Like, look around, look at the economy, look at the cost of living. And so I'm hoping the video today will let us catch up a little bit and let me just share what has been going on, but also to give some practical thoughts and guidance and tips on how I personally have been navigating this, really large sudden expense, and how you might be able to do the same. If you're in a similar situation with a medical bill or a pet expense as well, or dealing with a sudden layoff, I'm hoping that this might offer you some thoughts. And by the way, if you are new here, my name is Kate. I live in Toronto, Canada, and I talk about personal finance, but also minimalism, simple living, just living a better life all around. So if that sounds up your alley, then definitely subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Okay. So first up, let's do the whole rundown of everything that's happened. I've talked about it a little bit in past videos, but the long and short of it is that my dog just started seeming kind of off. I'd say sometime in September, maybe early October. And she just, wasn't wanting to go on walks. She wasn't really acting like herself. I was worried, and I did start to think about taking her to our regular vet, getting some regular stuff checked out. And to be honest, the visit with our initial vet was super disappointing. And I do not say this with hate. I know vets have incredibly difficult, challenging jobs, and I know that working in the industry can be really, really hard for a lot of reasons. But that being said, my concerns about Lexi were completely dismissed. They basically just told me she had early onset osteoarthritis and told me to give her fish oil and glucosamine, and that was about it. So about a week after we got sent home from our regular vet, we landed in the emergency hospital. Now at this point, we haven't even gotten to the real emergency yet, and we've probably already clocked about $1,000 of bills, just like going to our regular vet, going to the emergency vet at night, getting meds, things like that. Like, the expenses were already starting to pile up. Now, we were sent home from the animal hospital that night, but with a much clearer picture of what might be going on. They took the concerns much more seriously. They mapped out kind of like what our options were, what the cost would be for everything. They were absolutely amazing. So I did decide to take her home and monitor her for a few days to see how she was doing. It became very clear after a few days that something was very, very wrong. And sure enough, by the time I got her back in with a neurologist at the animal hospital a few days later, they actually just kept her right after our appointment. They said she needed an MRI like that day and would likely need surgery essentially immediately. So at that point, I had already had a few days to kind of start wrapping my head around it, and to start wrapping my head around the huge bill that was coming, because they had prepared me for that in the first appointment that we had. And it was around $14,000 to $15,000 was the invoice that they laid out for me, like the estimate. And so I had a little bit of time to start wrapping my head around it. And when everything ended up happening, she got the MRI, she got the surgery the following day. It turns out she had a massive disc herniation. It was extremely severe. About 95% of her spinal canal was obstructed. It was severely compressing her spine, which made sense. She was really not able to walk by the end. So it was an extremely severe case. Sometimes herniated discs can, dogs and humans can recover from them on their own. Like, you just use medical management, you use anti-inflammatories and, physio and things like that. This was not one of those cases. They made it extremely clear that surgery was the only way to repair something this catastrophic. At that point, it became really clear we had no other options. And so surgery was the way to go. And I did it, happily, but it definitely was and is a tough pill to swallow in terms of the cost associated with that, of course. At the very end, ultimately, it all came up to just shy of $13,000 when all is said and done. So a $13,000 bill, that's not great, obviously, not ideal. So what are we doing about it and how have I been handling this? Number one, the first thing I will say is that when you start to see the writing on the wall, start putting money aside immediately. And I feel like we've all experienced this in our lives. Like just when you have that gut feeling something is off, something bad is going to happen. Maybe it's that like little feeling in your gut at work. Like maybe you're getting that feeling that layoffs are coming, or your car starts to make a funny sound and you're like, that's not great. Or your dog starts to act not quite like themselves. And of course, some emergencies are true emergencies and we have no way to anticipate them. There's nothing we can do to prepare for them. But some of the time there are things that we can spot or things we might notice that tell us, hey, something bad is on the horizon. And I definitely had that with Lex. I knew for about 6 weeks before this all came to a head that something wasn't right. And even when our initial vet dismissed me, I was like, no. Like I knew in my gut that something was wrong. She's my dog. I know her very well. Again, I respect the opinions of those veterinarians, but I know my girl better than anyone. And I knew something was really not right. And if you are having that feeling, honor that feeling. Like if you know in your gut something bad is on the horizon, trust it. And use that time, even if it's only 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, to start preparing, to start bracing yourself. And even if you are in a situation where you can't really save much, even if it's putting like an extra $20 aside, $50 aside, taking a look at your savings, taking a look at your debt, just taking an inventory of where things are right now so that if the worst does happen, you at least are in a mental state where you've thought about it a little bit more. You're a bit more mentally prepared. I know it was so helpful, even just having the vet share the estimate with me like a few days beforehand, because once I saw those numbers, once I saw that like $15,000 bill, I immediately switched into action mode. Well, no, I cried outside in the parking lot of the animal hospital a lot. But then the next day I switched into action mode and problem solving mode. And I was like, okay, let's think about this. We can do this. We can figure this out. So I feel like even if you just have a kind of small heads up, start making plans, start putting a little tiny bit of money aside. Obviously, this isn't always possible, but this is all just about doing what we can and really just thinking of every dollar as a win. Every single little dollar that you can save right now, or every single extra little dollar that you can put aside is one extra dollar that you are not going to have to put on a credit card later, or one extra dollar of debt that you are not going to have to pay off. So even if it seems super small, in the grand scheme of a $13,000 emergency, every little bit really does help. The second thing I did was immediately tweak my budget and start moving money around. And I talked about this in my last monthly reset. I started moving money around like crazy. So I had money set aside for like personal care and clothing. October is the month that my birthday falls. And so I had, planned a bunch of fun spending and things like that. Nope, immediately cut all of that out of the budget. I redirected. I think it was something like $700 from all of those categories, and immediately was just like, nope, we're saving all of that. And then when I was planning my budget for November, I did more of the same. I cut my dining out budget in half. I cut my alcohol budget in half. I just completely axed things like clothing, entertainment, personal care. Done. We're not spending fun money right now. Like we are switching into emergency mode. And that means that all this fun discretionary stuff is just going to have to wait. It doesn't have to wait forever, but it does have to wait for right now. And this was while I, was still unsure of like how much this was all going to cost. But again, I was just trying to have the mindset of like every dollar, every $5 here and there that I can save and scrape together and patch together is going to be a huge win. I also did this for household spending and toiletries, where I cut that to just absolute bare bones essentials. So if I needed to replace something like Dish soap or shampoo, of course, can replace that. But, we're not buying anything fun right now. I'm also about 2 weeks into a pantry challenge right now where I'm just cleaning out my entire pantry, all my drawers in my kitchen, my freezer. So luckily I had a ton of old things that I had frozen. I had a bunch of frozen fruits and veggies, some frozen chilies, some frozen bolognese, just like a bunch of things that I had made. And honestly, I'm so bad about eating frozen stuff. Like things get pushed to the back. I forget about them. And so this is something that I should probably be doing periodically anyway, and I was overdue. I don't think I've done this in 2025 at all. So I looked at this as a good way to, one, just declutter and get through a lot of stuff that has probably been sitting in there for way too long, but also just as a way to reduce my grocery and food spending right now. And it's been really effective and honestly kind of just like a fun little way to save money right now. Okay, number 3, you need to look at the expense head on. And I know that this is really, really, really hard. I have had a lot of moments over the last few weeks where I wanted to just completely bury my head in the sand. I think this is pretty reminiscent of what I used to do with my money. I used to just go into total denial and avoidance mode and not look at my credit card statements and just not deal with it and run away from it. But I really forced myself in the last few weeks to remember that, avoiding the problem is not going to help and that I am capable of dealing with this. But I do have to look at it head on. So that did mean sitting down and looking at the invoice that the vet had created for me and really thinking about like, okay, 13 grand, like how are we going to do this? So whether your emergency expense is $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 or more, it's super important. The best thing you can do for yourself at this point is just to be brutally honest with yourself, sit down, face the music, and look at what it's really going to cost. Once you look at it head on, you can start to figure it out. You can start to problem solve, and you are also able and capable of doing that. But you do need to be real with yourself first, as hard as it is. Number 4, use a multifaceted approach. This is absolutely something that I am employing right now and likely something that you are going to have to do as well if it is a big enough expense. Maybe if we're talking about, like a $500 emergency, maybe you do have an emergency fund that can, sufficiently cover that without too much stress, in which case, amazing. But if we are talking about a bigger expense, there's a pretty high likelihood that you are going to have to use a combination of maybe like insurance and savings and help from friends or family and debt possibly. And that's okay. It's okay to use a bunch of different strategies and support and resources during this time. But again, this is just where you really want to sit down and map it all out. How much can you count on getting from insurance? For example, like if you're dealing with a car accident, if you're dealing with a medical expense, like how much is the copay? How much is your deductible? Like how much are you going to have to pay out of pocket before your insurance can kind of cover the rest? Like what does that look like? So in my case, I did have pet insurance, but I only had coverage up to $5,000 for the year. So I am getting some of this reimbursed, but nowhere near the cost of her total medical bills. Then you want to sit down and really take a look at your savings, your emergency fund, your month ahead fund. Do you have a sinking fund for this particular expense? Can you redirect money from another sinking fund or another savings account? Like I have a travel fund, a sinking fund that I use for vacations. And I, always have it in the back of my mind that if something bad like this happens, that I can actually pull money from my travel fund to help float me during a difficult time. And then I can always replenish it later. So do you have other savings accounts or sinking funds that you could maybe pull from? Are you able to get help or support from a significant other, a friend, a family member, even if it is a loan? Like, can someone spot you at this time? And if you think you are going to need to use debt to get through this, that's okay. First of all, like debt is not a moral failing. I have been in and out of debt pretty much my entire adult life. Some of that debt I have taken on, a lot more strategically than others. But I think that's just how you want to think about it as much as possible. Like if you are going to put this on a credit card, what are the ways that you can help mitigate this? Can you call your credit card company to try to get a lower interest rate? Can you get a new credit card that has a 0% balance transfer so that you can transfer the balance over to that card and not be paying interest on it for, 12 months or 18 months? I've done that with a Wells Fargo card, I think before, and I think I had like an 18-month interest-free period. So again, I'm not advising you do this all the time. Like I think we do have to be cautious with debt, but in the case of an emergency, if you have no choice but to put something like this on a credit card, you just want to be thinking about ways to make your life easier. Like, can you get a lower interest rate or no interest? on that amount of money for a period of time. Or maybe you can take out a line of credit, which is going to have a much lower interest rate generally, maybe more like, 6, 7, 8% instead of a credit card, which is like upwards of 20%. So if you absolutely need to take out debt to deal with this, do it and don't feel bad about it. It happens. These things happen, but you just want to think about ways that you can maybe make it a little easier on yourself to pay down your debt or manage your debt burden while you're dealing with this emergency. I'll also say too, lean on your community. And I'm like the worst person to say that. I have so much trouble asking for help. I hate it. I feel like I am so independent to a fault for sure. It's not a good thing. And, now is an okay time to ask for help. Like if you do have a family member or friend who wants to help you at this time, who wants to float you a little bit of money, who just wants to be even just that person to lean on, like let them be there for you. And your community can show up in a lot of different ways. And so even for me, like seeing your messages of support have just meant so much. And I also had a subscriber, Heather, give me a super thanks, so even just things like that, it's like, that is so, so, so appreciated. And I never want to ask because I'm just so bad at asking for help, but I just cannot express how much those gestures, the messages of support, the buy me a coffees have really meant to me over the last few weeks. And, now is a great time if you want to watch an extra video or two or watch an extra ad of mine, that would be an amazing way to support me and Lexi right now. And so I am also trying to be better at asking for help. And I know that when my friends and family are going through a time of need, like I want to help them. I want to give them money. I want to share. I want to support. And so I think it's really nice when you can let other people show up that way for you as well. All right, I feel like that one got really long-winded, but let's keep going. Number 5, I want you to look into every possible insurance, credit card benefit, anything like that that might help you during this time. So I had pet insurance, obviously, that's like a pretty, easily applicable example in this situation. But also something that I always forget is how many benefits you can get through things like credit cards. So even let's say you do something like you break your phone or your phone gets stolen. Like a lot of the time, if you bought it on a credit card, there's theft protection, or they have a period of time where you can replace something. Like you get insurance for things like car rentals and things like that through your credit card. So now is a good time to just be resourceful and think about do I have anything at all? Are there any perks I have with this credit card that might be able to help me? Is there something, in my medical insurance that could help me deal with this? Is there a benefit I have through my workplace? Because I know even my work has random benefits for certain things, random coverage, and I always forget about it. But now would be a good time to go through those documents, to go through your credit card benefits and perks, and just see if there is anything else you can take advantage of to get, partially reimbursed or to recover a little bit of your money. Number 6, I am using my month ahead fund and my emergency fund. I hate having to use this money. I really, really, really do. And I think I was saying that in my November money reset as well. I really despise with every fiber of my being having to dip into my emergency fund, but that is what that money is there for. That is why I've been saving it for the last few years, is for a situation exactly like this one. And so I just need to get over myself. That's again what I would tell a friend or family member, you've got the savings, use it. But for some reason, I have just such a mental block with using my savings, but I'm going to use my month ahead fund and my emergency fund to help cover expenses right now. And so what that looks like is, yes, I will be pulling some money out of my emergency fund, but also I will just be spending down some of what is in my checking account. So in my checking account, I tend to be about a full month ahead on bills. I really like making sure I have enough, which for me is about $5,000 to $6,000 to cover the next month's bills, so that I'm never waiting for a paycheck to come in to make sure that I'll be able to cover my rent. And so I'm just going to be depleting that a little bit right now. I'm going to be spending some of that down and having a little bit less of a buffer. And in 2026, I can, rebuild it back up. But for right now, I keep that buffer there for a reason, and I don't need $6,000 in my checking account at any given time. And Same with my emergency fund and just replenishing it later. Number 7 is seeing if you can find ways of making a little bit of extra money right now to redirect towards your savings or towards this emergency expense. And this can look a lot of different ways. Like I realized even I was getting my Rakuten payout this month and I was like, yes, even though it was $9, I think like $9.08 maybe, I was like, I will take it. I will take every last dollar, every last penny right now that I can get my hands on to help me with this expense. And so for you, it might mean that you like have a side hustle and you are able to just ramp it up a little bit. Like let's say you do rover, dog sitting, whatever. Maybe you can just do a couple extra sits or dog walks this month. You know, if you do something like content creation, you can ramp up the amount of content you're creating. That's something I'm thinking about right now. Obviously, it has been an incredibly stressful month. And so content creation has not really been like top of mind for me at all. But it is something I'm thinking about where I'm like, oh, if I do want to make a little bit of extra money, like I can work on, you know, getting a higher YouTube payout. You know, I can create YouTube shorts. I can put up more long form videos. You know, like I can move that lever to try to make a little bit of extra money right now. So that's just something to think about. I know it's not always possible. People's lives, circumstances are so different. And so it's not always possible to make extra money. But if you are able to, or even if it is just something like getting your Rakuten check or using credit card points for something right now, then I think it's a great way to go. Which brings me to number 8, which is rewards. Take advantage of all the rewards, all the points. I've really been taking advantage of that for the last few weeks. So a few things that I have done is that I have used some of my PC Optimum points. I used about 50,000 points the other day to help cover the cost of some groceries. So again, I'm just trying to keep my expenses as low as I possibly can right now, avoid having to put more on my credit card right now because there is like 13 grand sitting on my credit card. And so I'm really just trying to reduce my spending as much as possible. It also meant that I have the RBC Rewards Ion card, which I talked about a lot of this also, by the way, in my last video where I talked about like all my, you know, bank accounts and credit cards and things like that. I have the RBC Rewards Ion card and you get points that you can redeem for a lot of things, but you can redeem them for gift cards. And so I just redeemed a bunch of points for I think I redeemed for like $100 Petro gift card so that I've got gas covered for the next like month or so. I redeemed for an Uber Eats gift card. I redeemed for an Amazon gift card. So I just redeemed for a bunch of like super practical gift cards, things that can help me cover like household essentials right now. If I do want to order in a pizza one night, you know, things like that. So I'm really just trying to take advantage of like all the rewards I have. Aeroplan is another good one if you're in Canada. I feel like even every time I go to the LCBO, they're like, do you want to redeem your Aeroplan points to like cover your LCBO purchase? And I'm usually just like, nah, whatever, I'll save them. And now I'm like, I might be cashing those in next time I go to the LCBO. So yeah, now I think it's just a great time to take advantage of loyalty points, coupons, whatever you have. I also realized that I have this $100 like Visa gift card as well. So I'm just going to use that again, maybe to help cover some groceries or household essentials sometime in November. So again, really just doing like everything I can to redeem every gift card, you know, all the points. All right, we are getting to the end here. We have 2 more to go. Number 9 is to plan for all of the extras as much as you can as well. Because what I found is that most emergencies are accompanied by like a lot of other secondary expenses that you're not necessarily anticipating or planning for. So when I say that Lexi's expenses, her vet bills were about $13,000, yes, they were. But I have also spent probably about an additional like over $1,000 in the last month as well, just buying, you know, other equipment, things that we need, things for her. So I had to buy a crate because I no longer had one for her. I needed to buy her a ramp because she cannot take stairs right now. So like even that ramp was, I think, about $130. I've had to buy her a special harness. I've had to buy puppy pads. I've had to buy all kinds of rugs to cover the floor. You might be able to see a little bit in the background that my house is like one big doggy playpen right now, and just like all of the floors are covered in yoga mats and carpets. So I had to order those so that she doesn't slip on the floor and hurt herself. So there are just so many other expenses that have come up during this time. And I feel like that's the case with a lot of emergencies, you know, like in the case of job loss or suddenly having to move or, you know, anything like that, a medical expense. there's always all these like secondary things that also pop up that you're like, great, I already have to spend all of this money on this huge bill, but then I also have to spend all of this money on like all of this other stuff. So as much as you can, you just kind of want to like sit down and actually map out what those additional expenses might look like as well. And again, just try to plan for them. And then number 10, this kind of harkens back to something I was saying earlier in the video, but you want to treat every dollar as a win right now. So every dollar saved, every dollar put aside, every dollar that you can even delay spending for a week, 2 weeks, a month. So even if it's just like putting off purchases for a little while longer, maybe so that they're on your like next credit card statement instead of on this credit card statement, that's a win. Like that's really what I'm doing with groceries and things like that. Like I know I'm going to have to do a huge grocery shop at some point because I'm like depleting my entire pantry and freezer. But the point is that when I have to do that, it will be in like another month or so, and I will hopefully be in a position where, you know, my pet insurance has reimbursed me, where I will have gotten a couple more paychecks coming in, and where I will just be able to manage the expense a little bit better than I am able to right now, where I'm just like feeling super strapped and I'm really feeling the crunch. You know, even just delaying some of those purchases by a week or 2 weeks, being able to use gift cards to cover things for like a week or two can actually provide a lot more relief than I think we realize. But also remember too, you are not a bad person if you need to take out debt. Like these things happen. You just want to do what you can and manage what is in your control right now. And that might not be very much. But you know, if you are even able to save like a little bit or earn a little bit of extra money, I know when you are staring down the barrel of a huge expense, like a $13,000 expense, it just feels like this huge mountain to climb, but you just do what you can. You do the best that you can. You might need to take out debt, and that's okay. You are able to deal with this. I really hope that some of these tips and thoughts from the last month of how I've been dealing with this massive emergency $13,000 bill have been helpful if you are dealing with something similar. I really hope you're not, but if you are and life is also lifing for you in 2025, then I hope there were a couple little tidbits in here today that were helpful. I hope you are all doing so well. Thank you again for all of the support over the last month or so. Really appreciate you all so much, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.